Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Saturday, April 13th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 140 days.
Right?
The game against Michigan in 231 days. The Ohio State spring game coming up later on today. Tony Gerdeman and I live outside Ohio Stadium. Got a little preview of the spring game. Got to watch the full Ohio State practice. Got to watch the full Ohio State scrimmage on Saturday. But, this is it was a nice day. It's always a nice day to be inside Ohio Stadium. It was a little rainy, a little windy, not bad though. Got a chance to watch kind of through the whole practice, and they ran some 7-on-7 and a little bit of 11-on-11, ran some situational stuff. So you got to see kind of a good mixture of things. This is the Ohio High School Athletic Association Coaches Clinic weekend. So the real point of this practice being open was there were about 300 high school football coaches surrounding the field. As they were running individual drills, certain coaches would just bring the high school coaches out on the field to let them get an up-close look, explain some details on what they were working on. I mean, this is kind of a cool event. It's a great resource for the high school coaches. It's also a great chance for Ohio State to just sort of say, throw the doors open and say, you want to come see us? Come in. We're an open book. We want to help you guys be better at your jobs too.
Yeah, and there's a lot of open door policies with high school coaches in Ohio here. But yeah, it was interesting to watch during positional drills. Brian Hartline bringing coaches down there and explaining to them what he's doing, then run it through with the players, and then feedback to the coaches. And it's this whole weekend, the end of this week, is about giving back to the state coaches and things like that. So it's interesting to watch that aspect of it as the coaches coach the coaches a little bit.
Yeah, so that was a lot of the individual periods, because they'll do teaching periods and they'll do individual drill periods where they do certain work. They ran at one point a circuit of 6 or 7 different drills where guys were just doing one rep at one thing and they move to the next one, and you're just working on slightly different skills, all applicable to special teams. And so you saw kind of the approach to special teams this year that they have, where there is not one special teams coordinator. It's just, there's James Laurinaitis, and then there's Brian Hartline, and there's Keenan Bailey, and they're just kind of all around, running through this whole thing where special teams is a little bit more of a team thing this year.
Yeah. Have you memorized yet which coaches are responsible for which units?
I can say with great certainty that I have not.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the difference between you and me. Anyway, next topic.
So we did get to see, let's touch real briefly on the special teams, because I'm sure that's what everyone's here for. Jeremiah Smith. There, I said it. Now it will show up and it will help with our SEO.
There you go.
We'll get to him in a minute.
Hit the thumbs up.
He did some stuff. Hit the thumbs up. As soon as we get to 100 people hitting the thumbs up, we'll talk about Jeremiah Smith and the crazy stuff we saw him do today. We did get to see a little bit of special teams. They're kind of running through the punter. It's a weird time of year because this year's starting punter presumably is not actually signed, technically is not yet on the roster. They can't talk about him yet. It's kind of a weird thing because he has not officially signed yet. But the kicking, the place kicking looked good. I don't think I saw a missed field goal during that whole sequence. It was Kyle Snyder, the walk-on, Jaden Fielding, obviously the returning starter at kicker. They just kind of, you've seen them do it during the spring game where it's hey, you're going to put the ball on the right hash at the 10-yard line. You're going to put the ball in the middle right at the 15-yard line and kind of walk it back. And, I'm sure place kicking is not the single biggest area of concern. But while we're talking about special teams, this is really one of the first times we've gotten to see them really kick a lot, and it all looked pretty good.
Well, and the thing is, this is a very November-like day here in Columbus.
Yeah.
It's a little chilly. It's a little windy. It's pretty windy, and there's a little bit of rain at the end. So it's not ideal kicking situation, but you're not going to have that for much of the season, especially when it's really important. Now, the punting I thought was a little questionable early on. They weren't even getting the ball to the returners at points, but they were also, I think, at that point also kicking against the wind. So, if there is one flaw with this team right now, Tom, as you said, it might be the punting. And if that is the biggest problem, I don't know that that's too bad. And like you said, they're going to get another guy coming in this summer to presumably help them out.
In the words of a late, great Ohio State campus legend, help, Tony, is on the way.
There you go.
All right, so Kevin will let us know when we hit 100 thumbs up on this episode so that we would talk about Jeremiah Smith. Until we get to that point, until the listeners come through for us, we are going to be talking about some of the other positions that we got a chance to look at. Obviously, everyone's going to want us to start with quarterback, so we'll start with quarterback. Hey, thumbs up for that. They were kind of repping in the same basic order we've seen: Devin Brown, Will Howard, Lincoln Keenholz, Julian Sayin, Aaron Noland. So all of them get reps with the ones at various points, some more than others. I think my big takeaway was whoever had Jeremiah Smith out there felt like it was like, oh wow, he looked pretty good. And it's almost like when I'm judging the quarterbacks, it's like, okay, what did they do to receivers other than Jeremiah Smith? How did they complete passes, move the ball down the field with receivers other than Jeremiah Smith out there?
Yeah, like what questions did you answer on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire without asking, phoning a friend, or I'd like to eliminate two of these possibilities, because it certainly does help. It's the man on second in extra innings basically, and that's what he is. And so when we watched it 2 weeks ago, Devin Brown looked good, but it's like, well, he had a couple throws to Jeremiah Smith, so that's gonna help. But overall, I thought it was interesting. Devin Brown went first every single time. Like he was always the one. Now, as you said, Will Howard was in there with ones as well, but it was always the same order and how they repped. And it's been that order from what we've seen all throughout spring. So it would seem that that's the way things are right now in terms of the pecking order. Not that Devin Brown has wrapped this up. He hasn't, because you're not going to give Will Howard just 12 practices, 13 practices, 14 practices to win a job. That's not why he came here. That's not why you brought him here. But right now, it seems like Devin Brown is doing well. What I thought was interesting throughout a lot of this practice was all of the quarterback running that took place. That's reads, that's some scrambles. That was in drills earlier, having the quarterbacks go through some running drills where they're getting the ball swatted and they're doing some footwork drills over some of the things there, and just much more focused on that than we've seen in previous years.
And yeah, you saw a lot more quarterback run during even the 11-on-11 and the 7-on-7 stuff, which is, it's difficult to run the ball because it's, anytime anyone gets close to the quarterback, the play is blown dead. So, even when normally you'd be able to make a guy miss, or, someone's just kind of reaching for you, it's blown dead. So, the run is not very effective this time of year, but you see them working on it to the degree that they are. And you look at the fact that all 5 of the quarterbacks are similar. I mean, they're not identical in terms of athleticism and mobility and all that kind of stuff, but they're all pretty similar. You don't have, last year Kyle McCord was kind of like, well, he's a, 2.5 or a 3 on the mobility scale, and Devin Brown is maybe more of a 6 or a 7. You got a lot of 6s or 7s, and maybe you got a 7.5, maybe you got a 5.5, whatever, but they're all kind of in that same basic area. And you saw guys, even, with those kind of restrictions, you did see guys making some plays with their legs. I know Aaron Noland at the end had one that, picked up probably 10, 15 yards in the red zone. I look at that and I think, boy, it just feels like that's going to be a much bigger part of the offense this year.
Yeah, for sure. And not that it needs to be 8, 10, 12 carries for the quarterbacks. It's the 4 carries that leads to defenses respecting that, which allows the running backs to go ahead and make their lives easier, but also in the red zone, that's the equalizer. Yeah. The numbers are equated, as Urban Meyer would always say, and that's where they've, last year bringing in Devin Brown in the red zone to try to help. They don't need to do that anymore because you've already got that kind of quarterback in there. It's just part of the offense now. And then it also becomes a little less predictable because they're like, oh, they've taken the throwing quarterback out and they brought the running quarterback in. I wonder what's going to happen.
And just you talking about the fact that we've seen Brown at, kind of repping first all the way through the spring. It made me think back to the beginning of the spring when we always talk about what we learn is when something changes, that's like, oh boy, that's a big change. If Will Howard was repping first now, that would feel like, okay, he has clearly surpassed Devin Brown, which obviously has not happened yet, at least in the coach's eyes. And so now it's a matter of how close, how much has he closed the gap? Because when you come in, and Devin Brown's been here for 2 years already, obviously Devin Brown has a substantial head start. You wonder how much Will Howard has really closed that gap. There were times that I looked and thought Devin Brown was better than Will Howard. There were times when I thought Will Howard was better than Devin Brown. Devin Brown on the first, they ran the guys through like a drive from like the 40-yard
Yeah.
line. Devin Brown's drive went 3 and out, or four and out technically. Now he took a sack on the first down play. I think it was Tywan Malone got around. They must have run a stunt or something, because it was like Tywan Malone and Josh Simmons, which is like those guys shouldn't be matching up. So you got a sack on first down, so then it's 2nd and 17. And they ended up failing on a 4th down conversion. Will Howard's drive, I think they either got a touchdown or he went almost all the way down the field, and that might have been the one. That was the one with. We got to talk about that later. Who he completed a pass to, a very long pass down the sideline. Kevin, you'll have to let us know again when we hit 100 thumbs up. We can't talk about it. Can't talk about it yet. All right. So that was I think a note. That was okay. That Devin Brown looked better here. Will Howard looked better here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's Lincoln Keenholz, Julian Sayin, those guys. I mean, they feel like they are kind of battling for that 3rd spot right now. What were your impressions of those two guys today?
Yeah, it feels like Lincoln was ahead in terms of the repetitions.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really have any moment where Julian, the last time we saw him, had a couple of plays where you're like, wow. Mm-hmm. I don't know if these conditions are not ideal, but also it's like, well, this is what you're going to be playing in.
Yeah.
So like you can't. If the weather was fine, if you're playing, like this is what you're playing in. So, but they also were doing a lot of short yardage stuff. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to necessarily see a bunch of big plays. But what I think what you didn't see was something that you saw with Aaron Nolan, which was a not a good interception, like a bad interception to Jordan Hancock. You didn't see that from Say, and you didn't see that from Lincoln Keenholz. So the level of just a little bit more calm there, a little bit more patience and understanding of just the situation. And I just like the way Sayin operates in the pocket. Things are moving fast and quickly, but it doesn't seem like things are moving too quickly for him. He's able to just, look and there was a lot of just nobody's open today. Yeah. So you're going to have to tuck and run. So that was another reason I think why it wasn't necessarily easy for the quarterbacks to stand out, because the defense was doing pretty well.
Yeah. And there were points when during the 7-on-7 period, it looked, that it was like, boy, the offense is going boom, boom, boom right down the field. As soon as you got into 11-on-11, you got that pass rush in there a little more. That it definitely slipped, which, that's going to happen. That's one of the knocks on 7-on-7 as well. This isn't real football because you don't have a pass rush.
But even with some of the 7-on-7, they would have blown the ball dead if this was like the high school 7-on-7 stuff, because it was taking so long and the quarterbacks were just escaping, looking for something.
And we saw they were shuffling people around a little bit in the secondary. Normal, your normal starting corners, unsurprisingly, Davis Nigmanosin, Denzel Burke, and Jordan Hancock in the slot. That's obviously what we're expecting with the ones. That's what we got today with the ones. Did something new with Jermaine Matthews today.
Yeah, Jermaine Matthews was with the twos at nickel, and then you had Calvin Simpson-Hunt and Aaron Scott at the corners. So, Jermaine Matthews moving his way. They've been repping him at nickel. Obviously, he can play corner as well. But it's just interesting that he's to the point now where we don't need any more reps out of you at nickel or at corner. Let's continue to work on the nickel thing because you're good enough. You're good enough for what we need right now at corner. So I thought that was interesting, getting some work there. No Lorenzo Styles. Sorry, choked up. No Lorenzo Styles that we saw today.
Yeah, no Lorenzo Styles Jr. out there that we saw. And I said that was new. That's not new that we saw Jermaine Matthews inside. We've seen him inside. This was just pretty much exclusively inside, which is a little different. Someone else we saw exclusively inside, Emeka Egbuka. I think he was pretty much exclusively working in the slot with the wide receivers. That's certainly interesting, but it feels like that's, if you look at your three, it was Carnell Tate, and it was Jaden Ballard outside and Emeka Egbuka inside. That was, obviously we have seen plenty of Egbuka working inside, and he's probably going to play some outside this year as well. But that was another one where I kind of looked and went, that's interesting.
Yeah, because I think part of the reason he came back was to get more outside work, to help with the draft. And so when he's exclusively inside from what we saw today, and to me, that's a Jeremiah Smith situation where, we're not going to get too far into it right just yet, but this is a situation where it's like you want the best players on the field together. Emeka, you're comfortable doing the slot, we're going to get you back in there. And that's to me that's a reaction to that, in my opinion. But also, I thought Jaden Ballard had a really good day today as well. Kind of a deep pass early on, but certainly didn't look out of place running with the ones the entire practice.
No, did not. Bryson Rogers had a couple nice grabs. I saw a good one from Keon Grays at one point. So this is, unsurprisingly going to be a pretty decent wide receiver unit, I think. And I don't think we've actually talked about this on the show. I think we were talking about it right before we started. Brandon Innes on a scooter today. He is, obviously not going to be playing in the spring game tomorrow. I don't have any sense that that's, we haven't heard that that's going to be a season impacting thing yet. But
and he was out a couple of weeks ago. He's been out for a few weeks, and Day has said like nobody's lost at this point. So.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if we had mentioned that on this show, but so that's someone that you are not going to get to see. So if you have your spring game single player prop bets somewhere outside of the state of Ohio, where those are now illegal, go ahead and bet the under on Brandon Innes receptions and yards. So. Just trying to think through offensive line we have not touched on yet. It's, we would look and it was like, okay, here's the first team offensive line. And then you'd look, and then the next time the first team offensive line was, some of the same guys, but not all of the same guys. It felt like it was pretty consistently Josh Simmons at left tackle, Donovan Jackson at left guard, and Josh Fryer at right tackle. There was a point where you saw George Fitzpatrick at the ones very briefly towards the end, but it feels to me like those three positions are pretty solid at this point.
Yeah, and I think we only saw Seth McLaughlin at center. I don't believe that we saw him at guard, but we saw with both the ones and the twos. We saw Carson Hinsman at center with the ones and twos. Also saw Carson Hinsman at right guard with the ones. Saw Tager Cibola with the ones at right guard, and also Luke Montgomery with the ones. So was that 4 different guards?
Yeah.
And there are 3 guards in there with the ones. So as Ryan Day said on Wednesday, they're rolling through, and he wasn't lying. And I thought it was also good to see George Fitzpatrick out there at right tackle, as you said. Zen Mahalski with the twos, Austin at left tackle, Austin Searveld at left guard. And so that basically rounds out the offensive line there. But yeah, it was interesting watching just every single new drill was like a new right side of the offense, new interior on the right side with the right guard there.
And it feels like they really are not sure what they're going to do yet there. Sometimes it's like, well, you're going to move guys around, but it looks very different one versus the other. It feels like they're probably feeling reasonably good about both of those. I know snaps were a concern, that's anytime you talk about Ohio State centers this year, everyone's going to say, well, what about the snaps? The snaps were fine. I didn't really see many, if any, issues.
I will say Luke Montgomery began with the ones. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to talk about who started where starting out, that's what it was.
So, that's going to be obviously something we need to we'll continue to keep an eye on, and going to be probably one of those things that people are going to probably come away from the spring game. The defensive line is pretty darn good. I don't know how much we're going to see the ones on the defensive line. We did not see a lot of JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer and Tyleik Williams and even Ty Hamilton with the ones on the during the practice today. I don't know how much we're going to see those guys on the field on Saturday either. That they may be in there for
very little,
2 drives and then out. The defensive line has been pretty good. I don't know what are Ohio State fans, in the practices that we've gotten to see. What are Ohio State fans hoping to see? Do they want to see the offensive line really control the line of scrimmage and protect the quarterback, or do you want to see the great disruptive defense? Because we saw there was at one point I saw Caleb Downs blitzing like Lincoln Keenholz or something. Like Jim Knowles is getting into his bag a little bit here, so I think you're going to see pressure on the quarterbacks regardless. What would be better news for Ohio State? Boy, the offensive line looks great, or boy, the defensive line is being disruptive.
I don't know about better news. It'd be more entertaining if the defensive line just chilled a little bit and let the ball get out, let some things happen. If you want to blitz, go ahead, and that's fun too. But I'm not expecting the second team offensive line to hold up all that well against the twos and the ones, twos, and threes. I think the first team offensive line, you want to see them give their quarterback time. You want to see them give some room to Quinshon Judkins, who looks really, really quick, and And so maybe we'll get to see some of him tomorrow on Saturday. And you want to see some success, obviously, and because you're going to see so little out of the first team defensive line. You'd rather have the first team offensive line winning against the second team defensive line.
Yeah, and so that's going to be a fun positional battle to watch. Just thinking through anything else, we saw C.J. Hicks with the ones at linebacker a good bit. Yep. I don't know how much we're really going to see Cody Simon during the spring game. Ryan Day talked about, the guys with 1,000 reps probably not playing a lot. I'm guessing Cody Simon's going to be in that mix.
Yeah, got to see Gabe Powers a little bit with the ones.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Sonny Styles as well.
Yep. Yeah, linebacker. So that covers linebackers. Nothing really notable from tight ends. I know G. Scott had one nice touchdown catch. I think that was from Jelani Thurman had a nice touchdown catch at one point. Yeah, there's reason to be, I think, optimistic and intrigued by a lot of different position groups. I did think it was interesting. We saw some 10 personnel, which is not something they've run a lot. 1 running back, 0 tight ends, 4 wide receivers. We saw them running some of that, which we have not seen a ton of that because Ryan Day always talks about, really wanting that tight end in the run game. I think you look at the personnel on this team, and I think it's going to be hard, especially if you get everyone healthy and Brandon Innes is healthy this fall and all that kind of stuff. I think it's going to be hard to justify keeping all of those tight end, all of those wide receivers off the field. I think you're probably going to have to see more 10 personnel this fall.
Boy, we'll see. You've got some. I don't know that they're overly deep at receiver, but they've got, I think, a good 4, 5, 6 that they really, really like. Mm-hmm. So how do you get them out there? But we also know they're going to be playing a lot of depth early in the season that they've talked about. So that we'll see what happens there. I thought it was also interesting. We saw some kind of wing T action as well with some tailbacks in there, 2 tailbacks and like an H type of situation. I don't know how much of that we'll see, but I do think it's time to go ahead and do more with the 2 backs. We saw some of that last year, just very little. Mm-hmm. If you've got Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, you might try to get them both on the field together.
Yeah, and it's hard to keep the wide receivers off the field. It's hard to keep the running backs off the field. You pretty much have to have a quarterback out there. So at some point, something is going to have to give, and that thing feels like it's going to be the tight end room at some point. Kevin, do we have questions we need to get to?
We have 74 likes.
74 likes. All right.
We're getting there.
All right. We
may run out of time.
Okay, well, we're running out of time, so make sure you hit that thumbs up button. We're going to go and we're going to be done in about 5 minutes. So, okay, everyone, we're doing a hungry huddle. We're visiting with one of our board members, having lunch with one of our board members, and are going to have our board members at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So we'll be having lunch with him and then do a hungry huddle episode out of that. So. Okay, ready? Everyone hit the like button. 3, 2, 1, click. All right, I'm going to assume that everyone has now followed through on their contractually obligated duties. Tony, the second play of the game, the second play of it was the red zone drills. First play was whatever it was, and then the second play was a fade to Jeremiah Smith while he was covered by Denzel Burke, and he went up, put up his hand at the last possible second, went up with one hand with his left hand, brought it in, 2 feet in, and I just turned to you and said, well, now the Ohio Coaches Association knows we're not making all of this up.
It's always funny to watch the reactions to something that he does because, there are hundreds of people on the field, and we've got guys behind us as well in the stands, and it's just there's equal parts like wonder and then laughter, like wonder at first, and then it becomes
an audible gasp.
Yeah.
And these are high school football coaches who are used to seeing like football stuff happening all the time.
Yeah, and it was it's become normal, but it's still not because you're like, it's fun to watch. And like you said, Denzel Burke was on him. I think Devin Brown threw the pass, but it was really good coverage. And just like at the last second, you throw the left hand up there, grab it, touchdown, done. And I don't know what else Denzel Burke was supposed to do on that.
Yeah.
I mean,
he was in good position,
and that was one of his really nice catches today.
Yeah, he had one from Will Howard on one of those drives. It was the one we talked about earlier, where Devin Brown got sacked and went 4 and out, and Howard kind of took them down the field a little bit, and then connected on a long one. It might have been a third and something.
Third and long,
and hit Jeremiah Smith down
to the 2-yard
line, something like that.
And the interesting thing about that, because it was Calvin Simpson Hunt running with them.
Yeah,
and they were even. And then 2 steps later, Jeremiah Smith had 4 yards on him.
And Calvin Simpson Hunt is a track guy.
Yeah, he's like the fastest corner on the team,
Yeah.
and it just didn't matter. And it's just impressive to watch different aspects of his game stand out above and beyond, whether it's bodying Denzel Burke and going up with one hand, or it's just distancing himself and getting separation from a corner before catching a pass that was a little bit underthrown, and then you're going to have to go up and battle for it. And he does all of it. He does not at any point look like a freshman. I will say he had a drop today, but probably not a great throw.
It was high. He went up, and it was above his head.
I just want to reiterate that he is human. That's basically what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah, it was another impressive day, and I already find myself like finding him on the field and just watching him, and it's like, well, why don't you throw it to him?
Yeah.
Like I understand the concept of progressions, and I understand he's not the first read every time. And frankly, shout out to the Ohio State quarterbacks with the discipline to throw to other people, because it just constantly feels like, oh boy, he was open there. You probably could have, but you're obviously got to go through your progressions, and you have to be able to throw to everyone, and otherwise you're going to have a lot of other unhappy receivers. But
you're like Homer Simpson when Grand Funk Railroad was in town, and he just wanted
to the work in overtime. Get to the Jeremiah Smith part.
That's you, basically.
That is me. Yeah, it was. It's a little like Poochie. Since we only make one kind of reference here, it's a little. Anytime Jeremiah Smith's not getting the ball, it's like, where's Jeremiah Smith?
Yep.
Yeah, it continues to be impressive, and you will no longer the Ohio High School Athletic Association coaches no longer need to take our word for it. They have seen it on Saturday. The rest of Ohio State, and since it's on Fox, everyone in the nation will get to see it. We do have a super chat.
Omar Austin, hypothetical question. If I had to feed all 3 of you guys, who do I have to worry about eating me out of house and home?
Kevin.
Yeah. So the question is for Omar Austin, who is our Buckeye Huddle member, who we were having lunch with. Who does he have to worry about eating him out of house and home?
Well, no, Tom, you can go to town on some wings.
Yeah, it depends.
Just don't have the house made of wings.
If the house is made of pickles, Kevin. Yes.
The house is made of chicken fingers.
Any 3-year-old or Tony. Yeah, it is. We're looking forward to having lunch with Omar. But yeah, that should be a good time. I know we've got a place picked out. I don't know what the specialty of the casa is, but looking forward to that.
One last thing.
Yeah.
Sorry. You mentioned the Ohio high school coaches know about Jeremiah Smith. I was talking with Julian Sayen's high school coach yesterday, who is a California high school coach, also knows about Jeremiah Smith, watched him in a 7-on-7 tournament going against Julian Sayen last year, and he was also impressed.
Yeah. I mean, it is just – and what's remarkable about this is, like, Emeka Egbuka is not playing that much. So it's like, I understand why we're not talking about Emeka Egbuka. He had a couple nice catches.
Had a touchdown on Caleb Downs.
But – there was some like number on number violence where
13 on 13.
13 on 13. Yeah, Bryson Rogers had a nice one on Miles Lockhart.
Maybe that's why we didn't see Lorenzo Styles today.
I don't want that smoke. Yeah, it is. It's impressive that with Emeka Egbuka out there, with Carnell Tate, who, by the way, last year, I will remind everyone, Marvin Harrison said is ahead of where Marvin Harrison was at this point in his career. So, Carnell Tate. No slouch either. And it's still, and you saw some impressive stuff out of Carnell Tate today too. And you still walk away like, see what Jeremiah Smith did?
Yeah. I mean, we held the show hostage because we knew what to talk about, but we wouldn't do it. It's like we've never done that before about a player.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people are going to be, I hope he plays. I hope it's not like, well, he had just a little ding.
Don't be like the Dontre Wilson stuff in 2013 where there was so much hype and it just never came to pass.
Yeah, no, I think I'm sure people are going to be excited to see that in the stadium on Saturday. We're going to be excited to be in the stadium on Saturday with you, be covering the spring game We'll be here in the morning. We'll probably do something pre-game. We'll figure it out. And then planning to do our live post-game show as well, as per usual. Best way to make sure you are a part of both of those shows is to be subscribed to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Hit that bell as well. Make sure you get notified when we do those live shows or when we post a new show. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on any of these videos you're watching. That helps other folks find these shows. Just a nice thing you can do. Helps us out a little bit. Doesn't take much effort on your part. And finally, you want to get even more access to all the stuff we're going to be talking about from this practice, all our insight and analysis, all of the we had a whole active thread on our board on some of the stuff we saw and heard. You can find that on the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Sign up to become a member today. It's a good way to support us and the work that we do. I think that's it.
I think so.
All right. Well, thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will see you at the Horseshoe on Saturday.